This is Artemis Mission Control, 2 days and 14 minutes mission elapsed time for the first flight of humans aboard Orion, and I am joined here by Paul Boehm, Orion Crew Support and Thermal Systems Manager. Thank you for joining us, Paul.
Thank you very much for having me, Leah. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit about your role. You just came from the Orion Mission Evaluation Room, is that right?
Yeah, actually, I just did. I was just checking our systems to see how things were going, and I am really pleased. So my role is I manage the hardware related to crew and all the crew systems on the vehicle, the ECLA system, the thermal systems, the suits, the flight crew equipment that are on the vehicle, and so been doing that for almost 14 years now.
Wow, that's impressive. And when we're talking about the ECLA system, that stands for Environmental Control and Life Support System. So what all makes up ECLIS?
ECLIS, yes. The biggest thing everybody thinks about for ECLIS is the life support system, the pressurization system, the air revitalization system that we have, and then the other parts of it that are also part of it is the thermal aspect of it, where we're cooling the air to be able to keep the crew temperature down exactly where they want it to be comfortable in the cabin, and so that is also part of our system as well.
Yeah, we heard them make some calls a couple days ago about being a little chilly, and your team is the one that works on making sure they're comfortable?
Yes, we've been working that the last couple of days, trying some adjustments. It's one of the things I will stress with the new vehicle. We are learning every single day that we're flying this vehicle right now, especially with the crew in it. We flew Artemis I, we learned some things about the systems there, but now we have the crew involved, which adds a whole new dynamic to the vehicle, and that is what is really what we're looking at today, and learning how to interact with the crew and adjust things as we need to make the crew comfortable.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you also work with the food systems a little bit as well. So they're actually getting ready for a midday meal. We've been fortunate enough to have in-cabin views for some of today, and we saw them getting out some of their food. So can you tell us about the food warmer?
Yeah, the food system is, the crew is, a lot of the food that we use is very similar to what they fly in ISS. It's the rehydratable food. And what we use on Orion, we have what we call a food warmer. It's about a little suitcase-sized device, and our biggest challenge is mass and volume on Orion going to the moon. And so we had to reduce the size of a galley. We would love to fly a galley, but we just can't because of the mass and volume challenge. So we have a suitcase that basically the crew inserts their food into the suitcase. It's a warming plate and heats it up to about 155 degrees.
Oh my goodness, that's much warmer than I expected you to say. That's really impressive.
It's what they use for doing the hot drinks, warming up the food that needs to be warmed up so that it tastes better when it's warmer. So they can put about 12 packages in there to be able to heat up those and be able to have some hot food during the flight.
I'm impressed. I used to be a taste tester here, and so I always enjoyed trying the food. I found it to be really good, and so
it is amazing what they can do.
Yes, it really is. So tell us more about the ECLIS system and how it's performed so far now, 3 days in.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I am extremely excited how it's performing right now, because it is actually better than our predictions, which is really great. The carbon dioxide removal system that we are flying for the first time on a human spacecraft, relying on it, this particular system has been outperforming what we thought it was going to do. It's been awesome. So really low levels, and the crew's so far been pretty complimentary of it.
That's incredible news. So you were talking a little bit about, the temperature and how this is the first flight with crew, and so everything you're doing is learning. So what is your team hoping to learn on this mission?
So the biggest thing we're doing, number one right now, as I mentioned earlier, was because it is a flight test and it's the first time we're doing it, we're learning how to tweak things, we have heaters and we have the systems like the CO2 system I mentioned earlier. We're learning how to balance all those things as we work with the crew, because each crew member is different metabolically. We have different met rates that the crews have as they're doing different exercises, like you saw them exercising earlier today, versus when you're doing a meal, you're pretty calm, and therefore you have a very low metabolic rate. So those variables really change how we interact with the crew, with our system. And so that's really what we're learning today, is how our system interacts with the human.
We need a few minutes. We'll call you when it's a good time.
Copy, sounds good. We'll wait for your call.
That call from the crew about performing a wastewater dump, we actually had great views earlier from inside the cabin while they did so. It was fascinating. Talking about, preparing for the future, but we've also had similar hardware on the space station for the past 25 years. So what are some differences in the hardware that we have now on Orion and versus what, we have on the International Space Station?
Yeah, our biggest difference between Orion, because we are a deep space vehicle, you have that very long return, and there's no coming back until when you do that translunar injection burn that we did yesterday. And so it's going to be many days before we can actually get back. So when we designed Orion, we really looked at the ecosystem to try to figure out how can we make it simpler. And then some of the systems that we have, as I mentioned, the CO2 removal system that we have, we needed a regenerable system such that you weren't flying consumables that you had to use up every day and replace. That's a lot of things. I think I calculated one time, it's about 143 basketballs worth of lithium hydroxide canisters we would need to do a 21-day mission with Orion versus our current system, which takes about 16, volume about 16 basketballs to be able to go do that. And so it's a regenerable system. It essentially removes the carbon dioxide from the cabin air, dumps it overboard, and those items are recyclable every time you expose them to vacuum. They regenerate, and now you can expose it back to the cabin air again and remove more CO2. So it's those regenerable type systems. We flew some test examples of this on ISS to see how that went, but this is the first time we're actually flying with this type of system on a human spacecraft and completely relying on it.
Wow, amazing. And we've also heard some calls about the anomaly gas analyzer and taking those readings and the calls down from the crew about what they have gas-wise in the cabin. So how does your team take that data and interpret it?
So the biggest thing we have is certain limits on CO2 levels that we try to maintain without getting too specific, but I will. It's 4 millimeters of mercury is the level that we rely on. And basically, we use those AGA measurements to basically bounce against that level that we're at. And so I believe, if I remember correctly, it's about 0.4 millimeters here on the ground that we're normally breathing. And so we try to stay as low as possible with carbon dioxide in the cabin. So, and the readings that we're seeing right now are actually kind of phenomenal for a human spacecraft. So it's great.
Wow, that is great. Well, congratulations to you and your team on a great mission so far, and we will be keeping an eye on everything as we move forward. But Paul, thank you again for joining us here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a great flight so far.
Houston Integrity, you are go for Blizzard.
Copy, go for Blizzard. Christina, while I've got you and the crew, I have some information regarding a replan for the afternoon. Shouldn't require too much back and forth, but let me know. First is, we don't have any other vehicle statuses from what we've already told you. So unless you guys have questions for us, we were going to go ahead and cancel the Flight Director Crew Conference. That's in 10 minutes. We also are going to do a little bit of a replan with you guys managing the afternoon post-midday meal, basically after the PAO event. We'd like to give you a bit more time for exercise and sliding back that S-band SAT mode DFTO a little bit. And then exercise after that. This means that you'll have to manage some of that pre-lunar flyby, cabin config, and other activities just amongst yourselves. But this should allow us to get in all exercise and have enough time post-PAO event for that S-band SAT mode DFTO. The DSN EMERCOM DFTO needs to stay where it is because there's some vehicle maneuvers that have to happen with that.
Hey, Chris, let me just make sure. Are you saying we can defer the S-band SAT mode DFTO, but do the DSN EMERCOM on time? And Chris, if it helps you, Victor and I have both exercised, so he is more than happy to do the S-band SAT mode DFTO on time.
Thanks, Reed. Just talking down here with the team to make sure I got the right words to give you. We'd like that S-band SAT mode DFTO to slide 30 minutes to the right for some ground config. But then the EMERCOM DFTO will stay where it is.
Okay, that sounds good. Ike will be ready 30 late for S-band SAT mode, but if you could also please give us a heads up when your commanding is done and you're ready for that activity, that would help us out.
Absolutely, Wilco. The other thing we want to remind you is that in your midday meal, we have about a 1-hour forward DSN LOS, but for most of that, we've got return. And kind of in the middle of your midday meal period, you'll notice there's, like I mentioned, this good Earth and Moon viewing positions. It's also roughly when you're going to pass close to the halfway point between the Earth and the Moon, and you can reference your altitude on the PFD for that midway point.
Yeah, crazy that we're seeing 105,205 miles, and it's still going up pretty quick. Thanks for all that, Chris.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy your lunch.
Those calls from Capcom, Capsule Communicator Chris Birch, also a NASA astronaut here in Mission Control Houston, up to the crew aboard Orion, named Integrity. This view of Artemis Mission Control, the Orbit 1 team is still on console.